Before we begin, I thought it would be fun if everyone lets me know in the comments where they're watching this video from. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's start today's episode. Human activities have increasingly intruded upon natural environments, causing widespread changes that have significant repercussions for biodiversity, ecological balance, and essential ecosystem functions. While humans have historically influenced ecosystems, the scale and intensity of modern disruptions pose serious threats to the stability and health of natural systems. One of the strongest arguments against altering ecosystems is the crucial role biodiversity plays in maintaining ecological resilience. Ecosystems are intricate systems where living organisms interact with their physical environment, and biodiversity serves as a fundamental pillar of their stability. A diverse array of species helps ecosystems adapt to environmental challenges such as disease outbreaks and the spread of invasive species. Human-driven alterations, including habitat destruction, fragmentation, and the introduction of non-native species, can diminish biodiversity, weakening ecosystems' ability to sustain essential functions and support human well-being. Additionally, ecosystems provide numerous invaluable services necessary for human survival and prosperity, such as food production, clean water, air purification, soil enrichment, and cultural and recreational benefits. Disrupting these natural processes can have direct negative consequences for public health, economic stability, and overall quality of life. Furthermore, altering ecosystems can trigger cascading effects across the food web, disrupting ecological relationships and leading to the decline of key species essential to maintaining environmental balance. Keystone species play critical roles in maintaining the structure and function of ecosystems, with their removal or alteration often triggering widespread ecological changes. For example, the loss of top predators can lead to population explosions of prey species, destabilizing entire ecosystems and leading to declines in biodiversity and ecosystem services. Similarly, the introduction of non-native species can outcompete native species for resources, leading to declines in biodiversity and ecosystem stability. As mentioned, in recent years, advances in genetic engineering have enabled scientists to manipulate the genetic makeup of organisms, creating genetically modified creatures with novel traits and characteristics. While proponents argue that genetically modified creatures hold potential benefits for human health, agriculture, and industry, concerns persist regarding their potential to harm the environment and disrupt delicate ecosystems. One of the primary environmental risks posed by genetically modified creatures is the potential for genetic contamination of wild populations. Unlike traditional breeding methods, which rely on natural selection and genetic variation, genetic engineering allows scientists to introduce foreign genes into organisms, altering their genetic makeup in ways that may have unforeseen consequences. When genetically modified creatures are released into the environment, there is a risk that they may interbreed with wild populations, leading to genetic pollution and the loss of genetic diversity. Moreover, the release of genetically modified creatures into the environment can disrupt natural ecosystems and threaten native species. For example, genetically modified insects engineered to control pest populations may inadvertently harm non-target organisms, including beneficial insects, such as bees and butterflies, leading to disruptions in pollination patterns and ecosystem dynamics. Similarly, genetically modified fish engineered for increased growth rates or disease resistance may outcompete native species for resources, leading to declines in biodiversity and ecosystem stability. Another environmental risk associated with genetically modified creatures is the potential for unintended ecological consequences. Genetic modification techniques, such as gene editing and gene drive systems, allow scientists to manipulate the genetic makeup of organisms with unprecedented precision. But the complexity of ecological systems makes it difficult to predict how these modifications will interact with the environment. For example, genetically modified creatures engineered to control invasive species may inadvertently harm non-target organisms or disrupt ecosystem processes, leading to cascading effects throughout the food web. Additionally, the use of genetically modified organisms in agriculture and aquaculture can negatively affect soil and water quality. For instance, crops engineered for herbicide or insect resistance may contribute to increased pesticide and herbicide usage, leading to the contamination of soil and water sources. Similarly, genetically modified fish designed for accelerated growth can produce waste that degrades water quality and disrupts aquatic ecosystems. Beyond environmental concerns, the release of genetically modified organisms into natural habitats raises ethical and socioeconomic issues. There is growing apprehension about the possibility of these organisms escaping from controlled environments and establishing themselves in the wild, potentially causing unforeseen ecological and health consequences. Furthermore, the commercialization of genetically modified organisms introduces complex debates about ownership, control, and intellectual property rights. These concerns have significant implications for food security, the livelihoods of farmers, and broader issues of social equity. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries and enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up to stay updated on all our latest content. Moving on to the next mystery. On the afternoon of January 20th, 1996, at approximately 3:30 p.m., three young women were walking together in Santana, a neighborhood in northern Virginia, Brazil. Sisters Liliane and Valkyria da Silva, aged 16 and 14, were accompanied by their 22-year-old friend Katia Xavier when they stumbled upon something truly extraordinary. In an open, desolate area, they encountered a bizarre, almost demonic-looking entity leaning against the wall of an abandoned cinder block structure. The creature had leathery brown skin, a triangular-shaped head, and striking red eyes. Its limbs appeared unusually short in proportion to its torso, and it stood at an estimated height of about 2.5 feet. As the three girls stood frozen, unable to look away, they noticed that the entity seemed just as frightened as they were. It crouched lower against the wall, seemingly trying to make itself smaller in an effort to avoid their gaze. After a brief interval, the three girls pivoted and sprinted back to the main thoroughfare. They would go at full speed till they arrived at the residence of the teenage sisters. The situation would require around 20 minutes to attain a state of calm for the account to be comprehended. Katia, along with the sisters' mother, would then coordinate with a neighbor to revisit the location where they observed the peculiar creature. Upon their return, the thing was absent. An indentation was present on the grass where it had been situated earlier. A pronounced and pungent odor of ammonia was present. This is an aroma observed in the specifics of some close contact reports, and while they did not observe the monster, another individual had. An old widow and her granddaughter heard the screams of three little girls upon first noticing the peculiar figure. Although the females had departed by the time the two witnesses arrived, the grandma and small girl remained and observed the happenings covertly. They would assert that a vehicle from the municipal fire department arrived. The firefighters would promptly apprehend the beast before departing as though nothing had occurred. The incident will soon attract the attention of media and UFO investigators. Ubarajara Franco Rodriguez, in particular, would conduct a more in-depth investigation. His notes express his conviction in the honesty of the three females, and additionally, he would seek further supporting witnesses. Notably, a bricklayer named Enrique Jose de Souza asserted that he observed a fire department vehicle at the site of the purported sighting, despite the fact that his observation occurred prior to the time the three girls encountered the monster. A particularly compelling testimony would emerge in the form of local resident, Oralina Augusta. She asserted that she was awakened just after 1 in the morning on the January 20th by the sound of bellowing animals from a nearby farm several miles distant. Upon approaching her window, she observed the cattle stampeding in distress. She understood the rationale. A glowing, submarine-shaped object hovered above them. Alarmed, the woman quickly woke her husband, and together they gazed out their window, watching as gray smoke billowed from the side of the craft. The object then began to move, though its motion was erratic, stopping and starting in a jerky manner. It became clear to both of them that the vessel was somehow damaged. In Brazil, the fire department operates under the jurisdiction of the military police, which adds credibility to reports that firefighters may have been involved in capturing the strange entity. Records from the Virginia City Fire Department document a call received at approximately 8:30 a.m. on January 20th. The report describes an unusual creature moving through the wooded outskirts of the city, near the location where it was later allegedly apprehended that afternoon. When firefighters arrived at the scene, Official records note that 3 young boys informed them of a strange being they had seen in the area. The direction in which the boys claimed the entity was moving would, in theory, have led it directly to the site where the 3 young women later encountered it. Additionally, 2 other occupants, an unidentified man and woman, would corroborate the boys' account. The mom recalled that the boys were hurling stones at the thing. She instructed them to cease, and they complied. It subsequently vanished into the forest. A small search unit would be dispatched by the fire department into the woodland, but other than the occasional glimpse of movement, no definite sightings occurred. 2 hours later, as noted by Rodriguez, they succeeded in cornering the beast. They successfully captured it, observing its complete lack of resistance, maybe indicating an injury. Later that day, 3 creatures were captured, including the one that the 3 girls had seen. A severe storm would ensue shortly thereafter, suspending the search for several hours. By 6 in the evening, the search units would re-enter the woodland. It was reported that 2 officers, who were described as plain-clothed operatives, would track down and apprehend a 4th monster. Devoid of the equipment utilized by the search teams, the 2 agents compelled the monster into the rear of their vehicle. Local expert studies indicate that the agents transported the monster to a small local clinic. Nevertheless, the physician would deny them entry to the premises and would withhold treatment. He recommended that they transport it to the hospital in the city. One of the undercover officers, reportedly identified as Marco Shares, had physically restrained the creature with his own hands during its capture. Shortly thereafter, he fell gravely unwell and was admitted to the hospital due to the loss of function in all of his limbs. He would decline swiftly with little reaction to any interventions. Ultimately, he would perish on February 15th. Nevertheless, the subsequent events are very unsettling, to put it mildly. The hospital provided no clarification regarding the officer's demise. They ordered that his coffin be sealed and that the funeral occur within hours. The family intends to litigate against the Brazilian military for Cherai's demise. Nonetheless, the sole new information they uncovered was a minimal presence of dangerous substances in his system, and potentially more incriminating, a conspicuous modification of official documents indicating that Cherai's was off-duty on the night in question. Rodriguez's investigations revealed that an entire wing of the city's hospital was restricted in the aftermath of the tragedy. Additionally, the military will convene a conference with all hospital personnel. They would notify them that the events of the past few days constituted a training exercise for medical and military professionals. More concerning, they were directed to refute all inquiries if questioned. There were 3 sizable military vehicles outside the hospital in the afternoon on January 22nd. The reports indicate that the creature remained alive at this juncture. The military reportedly secured the entity in hermetically sealed, high-tech canisters designed for transport. Investigations by local researchers later uncovered that around 4 a.m. on January 23rd, a convoy of military vehicles, led by a yellow Volkswagen van, left Virginia with an unknown destination. Some claims suggest that Dr. Fortunato Baden-Powell's was responsible for performing the autopsy on the alleged extraterrestrial beings, though he has consistently denied any involvement. A student who questioned Dr. Powell's about the rumored autopsy in the late 1990s recalled that he seemed willing to provide an explanation, but requested that the topic be revisited in 10 to 15 years. His response led some to speculate that he anticipated eventual disclosure. Further investigations later confirmed the presence of at least 1 U.S. agent in Virginia from January onward. Additionally, reports indicate that on January 13, 1996, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, alerted Brazilian authorities after detecting several unidentified objects over the Western Hemisphere, with at least 1 entering Brazilian airspace. The possibility of 1 or more unidentified objects crashing to the Earth in Brazil that evening, potentially near Virginia, is a subject of debate. Nonetheless, a report of such an instance exists. Carlos de Souza was operating a vehicle on the Fernaldez Highway in the early hours of the January 13th. He was fewer than 5 miles from Virginia when he abruptly heard a muted roaring noise emanating from above. Upon directing his gaze upward, he observed a cigar-shaped silver vehicle moving at an approximate speed of 50 miles per hour. He discerned 4 windows down the side of the UFO, which he estimated to be approximately 40 feet in length. Additionally, he observed a jagged split or break at the front of the item. Dense white smoke spewed into the atmosphere from this mechanical injury. The craft quickly surpassed Souza, and for 10 minutes, he trailed the silver object. Subsequently, it vanished into a descent beyond the tree canopy. From Souza's perspective, there was no doubt it had descended someplace in the forest. He persisted in operating his truck towards the location he presumed the object descended. After several minutes, evidence of his conviction emerged. He halted his truck, unwilling to approach any nearer. In the field before him, he observed the dispersed silver remnants of the cigar-shaped vessel that had traversed the sky mere minutes prior. He was taken aback when he saw approximately 40 soldiers actively gathering debris and loading it onto military vehicles. Nearby, he noticed a piece of silver material lying on the ground. Curious, he picked it up, but before he could examine it further, a soldier ordered him to leave immediately. He obeyed, but later stopped for coffee several miles away. While at the cafe, two men in civilian clothing, whom he recognized as military personnel, approached him. They addressed him by name and firmly instructed him not to speak about what he had witnessed. Though there is no concrete proof to validate Souza's account, his story aligns with classified information linked to NORAD, details he could not have been aware of at the time. This suggests that the case is far more complex than a simple hoax and may involve deliberate disinformation intended to obscure the true events that unfolded in Varginha, Brazil, in late January 1996. Moving on to the next mystery. The mysteries of the deep ocean have long fascinated humanity, concealing countless wonders within its vast and uncharted depths. Even in this age of rapid technological progress, the ocean continues to surprise us with remarkable discoveries. One such revelation is the astonishing identification of pyramid-shaped structures resting on the ocean floor, made possible through the innovative use of Google Earth. With the advancement of satellite imagery and digital mapping technologies, the world has become more accessible than ever. These developments not only aid navigation and land exploration, but have also revolutionized our ability to study the ocean's hidden depths. Among these breakthroughs, Google Earth has proven to be an invaluable tool for marine researchers and explorers alike, offering an unprecedented means of uncovering submerged mysteries. This advanced mapping technology has transformed the way scientists investigate the ocean, providing access to an extensive database of high-resolution imagery and underwater topography. By integrating satellite data with detailed underwater mapping, Google Earth has unlocked previously inaccessible regions of the ocean. The discovery of these pyramid-like formations began when a group of amateur marine researchers and enthusiasts meticulously analyzed satellite images, determined to unveil secrets hidden beneath the waves. Their objective was to unearth concealed underwater anomalies, and during their pursuit, they unexpectedly stumbled upon a collection of perplexing images that defied rational explanation. These immense pyramid-shaped structures nestled deep beneath the ocean's surface extended for hundreds of feet into the unfathomable abyss. The fascinating discovery of these enigmatic underwater structures has piqued the curiosity of both experts and enthusiasts alike. The comprehensive examination of satellite imagery provided substantial evidence of their existence, giving rise to numerous questions and speculations concerning their origin and purpose. The news regarding this remarkable finding rapidly proliferated, captivating the interest of enthusiastic non-professional investigators. The initial images, initially regarded as peculiar irregularities, were promptly authenticated through additional satellite scans. The unquestionable presence of these submerged pyramids not only astonished, but also invoked perplexing inquiries that reverberated throughout the realms of marine science and archaeology. The research of this groundbreaking discovery allowed for a thorough analysis, shedding light on various aspects and prompting a deep exploration of the subject matter. The structures resembling pyramids discovered underwater drew striking parallels to those seen in ancient civilizations, such as Egypt and Central America. However, what set them apart was their colossal size and their placement on the ocean floor, a phenomenon never encountered before. These enigmatic structures stood quietly amidst the depths, concealing their origins and purpose, thus intensifying the mystique surrounding them. The unveiling of this extraordinary find necessitated answers, prompting an international scientific expedition to delve deeper into the mystery and shed light on its true nature. With the confirmation of the discovery, numerous individuals have expressed the desire for an international consortium comprising scientists, marine archaeologists, and deep-sea explorers to undertake a bold and ambitious expedition aimed at conducting a first-hand investigation of the enigmatic underwater pyramids. These remarkable findings have captured global attention, igniting intense discussions, theories, and imaginative conjecture. Professionals and enthusiasts alike have wrestled with the enigma surrounding their source and significance. These fascinating discoveries have sparked intense scrutiny, prompting an in-depth investigation into their origins and significance. Numerous theories have surfaced regarding the nature of these submerged structures, with some suggesting they are remnants of an ancient, highly advanced civilization that once thrived on Earth. Others speculate that these formations are the work of a technologically sophisticated human society, long lost to the depths of history. The recent identification of pyramid-like structures beneath the ocean, made possible through Google Earth, represents a groundbreaking moment in both marine science and archaeology. These underwater pyramids pose a compelling mystery, challenging our understanding of history, civilization, and the hidden wonders concealed beneath our planet's vast oceans. As researchers continue to analyze inscriptions, examine artifacts, and unravel the mysteries surrounding these formations, one thing remains certain: the enigma of the submerged pyramids will continue to intrigue humanity for generations to come. Their discovery stands as a testament to the endless marvels of our world and the limitless potential for uncovering long-buried secrets beneath the sea. Moving on to the next mystery. The ocean remains one of the final uncharted frontiers on Earth, with vast mysteries lurking beneath its depths. Despite ongoing exploration, our knowledge of the underwater world is still limited, and with thousands of new species being discovered annually, it is clear that there is much more to learn about marine life. In 2015, the Iranian Navy reportedly encountered an unusual sea creature with a massive body, a tail resembling that of a dinosaur, and spines protruding from its back. The images of this strange discovery have only surfaced on a handful of paranormal websites, making them relatively obscure. Those who have examined the photos speculate that the creature could be an undiscovered species. However, a marine biology expert suggested that its size and skin coloration closely resemble those of a decomposed whale carcass. The expert explained that such appearances are not uncommon, as ocean currents can push whale remains around for extended periods, altering their form. For years, reports of massive sea creatures have emerged from various parts of the world, fueling speculation about their origins. While some believe these sightings are exaggerated accounts of mythical sea monsters, others argue that these encounters may involve real, unidentified marine species that have yet to be classified by science. Scientists, however, have explained that these creatures that wash up are not anything new and are just whale carcasses. Oftentimes, it's no surprise to find a number of strange ocean life washing up on the shores of beaches from around the world. Additionally, many of these strange species coming from the ocean can range in all sorts of shapes and sizes, from dolphins to whales to sharks, and even swarms of floating jellyfish all across the beach. Interestingly, there are a number of cases in which impossible to understand species have washed up on beaches, and these have been referred to as globsters. Globsters are described as being large white globs of animals washed up that have been reported as sometimes still moving or completely dead. This has led to many referring to these large masses such as that of different kinds of sea monsters. But researchers usually believe that they're nothing more than a form of mistaken identity. However, one of the most convincing cases comes from an encounter of a globster referred to as El Tronco. Back on the October 24th in 1924, a strange and unexplainable monster washed ashore after witnesses combing the beaches claimed to have seen an even more impossible to explain scenario. Out in the waves close to the shore, there appeared to be two large killer whales working to take down an even larger creature in the ocean that not a single person standing watch could explain. The ocean monster was described as having a long and massive trunk similar to that of an elephant, a thick white fur wrapped around its entire body similar to that of a polar bear, and the bloated and massive body of a small whale. Given the massive trunk extending from the face of the white furry beast, many gave the creature the name of Trongo and believed it to be a strange monster unknown to researchers at the time. Despite the body rotting away on the beach for more than 10 days, with a wide variety of people visiting the site, not a single scientist or researcher went to the body, and none of it was preserved for future study. This has led many to believe that perhaps the creature was nothing more than a large whale and a case of mistaken identity. Given the fact that nothing could have been preserved of the event, it's hard to assume that the creature was a case of mistaken identity, and the witnesses that recount the tale say overwhelmingly so that this wasn't the case. Unfortunately, it appears that we may never know what the creature really looked like and where it came from, marking it as an impossible to explain ocean mystery. Today, many crooked websites on the internet have removed the Tronco creature and accepted the explanation of an all-bloating carcass as the cause of the sighting, despite numerous witness claims more than detailing the strangeness of the creature. What's odd about this, though, is that even to this day, people have come forward and allegedly seen more of these creatures. Going back a few years ago, one managed to find its way on the beach, again covered in thick white fur. However, scientists said the same thing, that the creature in question was a whale, and that what people were seeing was the tissues breaking down. There's others who have claimed that large, unknown creatures also live in the colder regions of our planet. One of the most well-known ones and famous ones is that of the mysterious Ningen. Antarctica has always been at the center of a wide number of different theories. Interestingly, it appears that Japan is no stranger to these theories and have been at the center of rumors surrounding the icy continent. It appears that over the last few years, stories of strange humanoid creatures living in Antarctica have slowly been circulating all around Japan. According to accounts from the Japanese oil industry, numerous crew members aboard so-called whale research vessels have reported encountering mysterious humanoid creatures. These reports frequently emerge when ships approach the waters near Antarctica, where crew members claim to witness enormous beings floating in the ocean. Described as massive, humanoid figures measuring between 20 and 30 meters in length, these creatures are said to have entirely white skin. In some cases, observers initially mistook the beings for submarines in the distance, only to realize upon closer inspection that they possessed distinct human-like features, including hands, fingers, eyes, and a mouth. The sightings have led Japanese sailors to refer to these entities as Ningen, a term meaning human, while others simply call them Antarctic humans. Despite ongoing debates, the true nature of these alleged creatures remains a mystery. Various theories have been proposed in an attempt to explain the phenomenon, yet Japanese crew members insist that such sightings are a frequent occurrence in the icy waters surrounding Antarctica. Moving on to the next mystery. Mount Kilimanjaro serves as a crucial water source for the Nile River, which has long been the lifeblood of Egypt. Without a steady and abundant flow, crops would wither, livestock would weaken, and famine would take hold, just as Joseph warned in his interpretation of the pharaoh's dreams. Scientific studies of ice cores from Kilimanjaro reveal that a severe drought occurred around 3,600 years ago, aligning with the period when Joseph is said to have advised Egypt's ruler. Additionally, an ancient canal designed to keep the Nile's branches flowing and maintain the fertility of surrounding tributaries remains operational to this day. Though its origins are unknown, local traditions have preserved its Arabic name, which translates to the waterway of Joseph. This has led many to believe that Joseph himself may have overseen its construction to mitigate the effects of famine. While the truth behind these accounts remains uncertain, these historical findings seem to support elements of the biblical narrative. Moving on to the next mystery. Terrence Williams was born on January 17, 1976, and grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. By the age of 27, he was a father of 4 and had multiple legal troubles. He was charged with DUI and served 55 days in jail for failing to pay child support. Additionally, in 1995, he pleaded guilty to robbery and was sentenced to 11 months in prison. After his release, Terrence moved to Naples, Florida, hoping to turn his life around and be closer to his mother, Marcia. He spent most of his career working in construction, but had recently taken a job at a Pizza Hut restaurant before his disappearance. Terrence and his mother shared a close bond, speaking daily and spending Sundays together. That's why Marcia found it unusual when she hadn't heard from him on Monday, January 12, 2004. She wasted no time and quickly tracked down the white Cadillac that had been towed. Marcia discovered that Deputy Stephen Calkins of the Collier County Sheriff's Office had signed the tow report. Calkins, originally a farmer from Illinois, had served on the force for 17 years with a spotless record and no prior issues at work. A married father of 3, Calkins had previously been recognized for helping to rescue a man trapped under an overturned pickup truck. However, beneath his commendable reputation, there appeared to be a darker side, one that may have been overlooked or deliberately concealed. On the morning of January 12, sometime between 9 and 10 a.m., Calkins allegedly pulled Terrence over near Naples Memorial Cemetery, close to the intersection of 111th Avenue North and Vanderbilt Drive. Terrence was driving without a valid license, and Calkins discovered that his license plate was expired. The deputy then placed the 27-year-old in the back of his patrol vehicle and drove away. Terrence vanished from sight. Employees at the cemetery informed Terrence's mother that they had witnessed Calkins placing the young man in the rear of his vehicle. The staff later observed him pulling the Cadillac to the side of the road, even though he had initially begged to be allowed to leave it there. Marcia received a call from Terrence's roommate asking if she had seen him the day following the incident. Calkins' statements to detectives during the course of the investigation into Terrence's disappearance were frequently contradictory. After telling investigators that the car had been abandoned at first, he subsequently said that he had pulled it over because it looked to be having some issues. In addition, he later called a dispatcher and asked for Terrence's details, contrary to his claim that he had come upon an abandoned car. Afterwards, Calkins stated that Terrence had requested a lift to the Circle K shop on Wiggins Pass Road from him. The 27-year-old claimed to be employed there and expressed worry about losing his position. Terrence had long dreadlocks, but the deputy claimed he seemed like a very clean, well-spoken, respectful young man, so he agreed to drop him off. Calkins made the decision not to arrest Terrence when he informed him that his registration was in the Cadillac's glove box as they were driving to the store. The deputy drove back to the older car after dropping off the 27-year-old and checked, but the glove box was empty. Calkins, mortified, called the Circle K store and discovered that Terrence was not one of their employees. The 27-year-olds were not captured on camera, and investigators' review of phone records did not reveal that Calkins had made a call to the business. Nobody who worked at Circle K remembered ever speaking with him. The deputy, however, was unable to explain this disparity. Throughout the course of the investigation, Calkins took 3 polygraph examinations. He failed the question, "Did you stay in touch with Terrence after you dropped him off at the Circle K?" The deputy said, "No," in response. It is important to keep in mind, too, that polygraph examinations are notoriously unreliable and are typically not admissible in court. Despite a thorough search of his patrol car, no evidence was found. It was spotless. Investigators even installed a GPS tracker on Calkins' vehicle, hoping he might visit a potential disposal site, but he never did. Authorities also searched the surrounding swamps for a body, but found nothing. Reportedly, due to a lack of sufficient evidence to justify a warrant, Calkins' home was never searched. Eventually, he was fired from the sheriff's office for multiple violations, including lying about the case, refusing to cooperate with the investigation, and failing to follow agency policies and procedures. Over the years, Calkins has continued to deny any involvement in Terrence's disappearance. He now resides in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. In August 2018, Marcia filed a wrongful death lawsuit, holding Calkins responsible for Terrence's presumed death. Under Florida law, a person who has been missing for 5 years with no investigative leads can be legally declared dead. Marcia stated that she pursued the lawsuit to bring closure to Terrence's 4 children. June 2019 saw the lawsuit dismissed. However, Marcia and her attorney were allowed to modify the complaint within 20 days. The judge determined that the evidence did not establish Calkins' guilt for Terrence's disappearance and assumed death with sufficient strength and impact. According to a 2021 article, this action is currently under dispute. Regretfully, it's commonly accepted that Terrence wasn't Calkins' initial victim. On October 14, 2003, at around 6:30 a.m., Felipe Santos, 24, disappeared. Felipe, a Mexican resident of Immokalee, Florida, and his brothers were engaged in a minor traffic accident while they were traveling to work. After arriving on the scene, Deputy Calkins placed Felipe in the rear of his police car for driving recklessly and without a license or insurance. When Felipe's 24-year-old supervisor called the county jail later that day to post bail, he discovered that Felipe had never been arrested. Like Terrence, Culkin asserted, he declined to arrest Felipe due to his cooperation and politeness. He left the youth at the Circle K on Immokalee Road, a nearby community. The driver who was involved in the incidents, however, said that Culkin appeared irritated by the 24-year-old's lack of documentation and that he had just mentioned that he was sick of stopping individuals who were driving without licenses. Despite a complaint from Felipe's family, Culkin was found not guilty. The 24-year-old is thought to be dead because he hasn't been seen or heard from since. Terrence's mother thinks her son has passed away as well. The Starlight Tour argument, which explains the practice of police officers bringing people to the edge of town or outside of the city boundaries and leaving them to find their own way home, is a widely accepted theory in both of these cases. The abuse is said to have begun in the 1970s and gained widespread attention around 2000 when Native American men in Canada started to experience it frequently. According to some, Terrence was abandoned in the Everglades and perished from exposure or another threat. The last time Terrence Williams was seen was early on January 12, 2004. He was close to the Naples Memorial Cemetery, which is situated between Vanderbilt Drive and 111th Avenue North. He's a black man with brown hair and eyes. At the time of his disappearance, Terrence was approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed around 160 pounds. He had several distinctive tattoos, including his name, Terrence, highlighted in blue on his left forearm, the initials ED in red ink on his right shoulder, and a red T on the left side of his chest. Additionally, his upper right tooth featured a gold crown engraved with the letter T, and his other top front tooth was also gold. He had a black birthmark on the right side of his abdomen and a vertical scar on his right shoulder. Terrence was last seen wearing a silver watch, 2 diamond earrings, blue pants, brown Timberland boots, and a short-sleeved t-shirt. Felipe Santos, another missing person linked to the case, was a Hispanic male with brown eyes and black hair. He stood about 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighed around 150 pounds at the time of his disappearance. He was last seen wearing a t-shirt, blue pants, and boots. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Terrence Williams or Felipe Santos, please contact Crime Stoppers at 800-780-8477 or the Collier County Sheriff's Office at 239-252-9300. Moving on to the next mystery. Liddell shares details about Dorothy Cooper's early life, noting that she was born in 1909 as Dorothy Furstein. In 1942, she married her childhood sweetheart, Jules Furstein. 2 years earlier, Jules had lost his wife, Molly, during childbirth, leaving him a widower and the sole caretaker of their 2 young daughters, Myrna and Marcy. After their marriage, Dorothy gave birth to their son, Edward, who remained her only child. Friends and neighbors described Dorothy as a warm, sociable woman who deeply loved her family, and their marriage was considered happy. When they first started dating, Jules worked as a clerk for the municipal council before being appointed a magistrate in 1943. After their wedding, Dorothy and Jules moved into a 3-story home on North Franklin Street in Philadelphia. On January 25, 1945, Dorothy, then 36, left her children with a neighbor while she ran errands. That evening, she returned home to discover that someone had broken into the house. During the struggle, Dorothy accidentally knocked the telephone off its base, allowing the live operator on the other end to hear the commotion. Concerned by the sounds coming from Dorothy's line, the operator quickly alerted the authorities. At the sound of approaching police sirens, the unknown assailant fled, leaving Dorothy barely conscious. She had suffered severe injuries, including a fractured jaw and nose, a concussion, and a shattered shoulder. Fortunately, Dorothy survived and made a full recovery. However, when questioned by detectives, she was unable to identify or even describe her attacker, simply stating, "Someone jumped out at me. I didn't recognize him. He just kept hitting me." Authorities found the case unusual, as there were no signs of forced entry and nothing had been stolen from the home. After speaking with local residents, police discovered another witness, but she, too, was unable to describe or identify the assailant. The neighbor recounted seeing someone either accompanying Mrs. Verstein or trailing close behind as she made her way to the front door. The neighbor, however, didn't pay much attention because she didn't find it noteworthy. Only after Dorothy's attack became widely publicized did the witness start to think that what she had witnessed might be significant. Following the events of that evening, the 36-year-old mother of three turned inward and withdrawn. She was extremely sensitive to abrupt noises, even the slightest ones, and she always made sure that the house's windows and doors were secured at night. Although it took a few years for Dorothy to start looking like her former self, more tragedy was regrettably on the horizon. Jules departed from home on October 18, 1949, to go to a political banquet. Myrna, the couple's eldest daughter, who is currently 19 years old, also went to spend the night at a friend's house. Dorothy gave a buddy a call at about 9 o'clock at night to set up a shopping appointment for the next day. Reportedly, Jules called Dorothy that evening, but accounts differ. Current reports claim that he spoke with his wife on the phone from 5 to 6 p.m. He was preparing to leave his office and go to the dinners at this point. Older newspaper cuttings from 1949, however, state that he called her at approximately 10 p.m., which is almost 1 hour before he got home. Nonetheless, the papers do concur that when he called, Dorothy appeared to be doing just great and in high spirits. Jules was shocked to see Marcy and Edward by themselves in a bedroom when he got home at around 11 o'clock at night. The two were snuggled close together, clearly terrified as they sobbed. "Mommy's gone." Startled by their words, Jules went through the house, trying to find his wife. He then called a few of Dorothy's acquaintances to try to find her, but nobody had seen or heard from her that night save the person she had made plans with. Jules called the local police captain and explained the issue, fearing for his wife's safety. A search team was mobilized in a matter of hours. The surrounding area and beyond were thoroughly searched. Detectives shared Dorothy's account with law enforcement agencies in 8 eastern states as they scoured motels, morgues, and mental health facilities nationwide for any evidence of the 40-year-old, but they were never successful. The sole lead for law enforcement came from 9-year-old Marcy, who said she had been awakened in the middle of the night by a noise. Marcy had left her room and gone into the hallway about 15 minutes before Jules got home. It was then that she saw a middle-aged man, roughly her father's age, come up the stairs and go into her mother's bedroom. She reported to the police that her mother appeared ill after seeing her unconscious on the ground. The man picked up Dorothy and threw her over his shoulder a few moments later. The 40-year-old woman remained motionless as the man in the brown peaked cap carried her downstairs. When Marcy asked what he was doing, he gently patted her head and reassured her, saying, "Go back to sleep, little one. Your mother is fine." Marcy distinctly remembered that she had never seen the man before. Initially, investigators were skeptical of her account, believing that young children often have vivid and exaggerated imaginations. However, after Marcy was evaluated by a psychiatrist, her story was deemed credible. Notably, in both the kidnapping and previous assault, no belongings were taken, eliminating robbery as a potential motive. There were also no signs of forced entry, and no unusual fingerprints were found inside the home. In fact, it is believed that the man who abducted Dorothy even closed the front door behind him as he left. These puzzling details only added to the mystery surrounding the case. In Dorothy's case, there aren't many theories. Investigators quickly acknowledged that, even in the early days following the 40-year-old's disappearance, they had no clues. Newspaper articles from 1949 claim that the authorities speculated that she might have suffered from amnesia, but they don't explain why. A prominent theory surrounding Dorothy's case is that she was attacked and subsequently kidnapped by an individual harboring resentment towards her spouse, Jules. Morris Ameth has been identified as a potential suspect. A textile seller claims that 2 police officers beat him for 20 minutes after removing him from a violent throng. He was fined $10 and accused of multiple infractions. Subsequently, he brought charges of assault and battery against the police officers who had allegedly attacked him. However, Jules, who at the time was a magistrate, dismissed them. But there was never any proof linking Ameth to the location of the kidnapping or the assault. According to a different allegation, Jules bribed someone to hurt his wife. The theory put forth by armchair detectives is that Dorothy was supposed to die in the initial attacks, but she survived because of a lucky break. A hired hitman was therefore paid to go back to the scene and do the job. It has been noted, nevertheless, that if Dorothy had just vanished, Jules would have known how long it would take him to declare her dead or gain access to any of her belongings. It would have been preferable for him had his wife's body been discovered if this strategy was going to work. It has also been proposed that Dorothy may have staged her disappearance to avoid living in constant fear, possibly as a result of financial difficulties. Some have speculated that she left her kids behind to avoid being charged with kidnapping if she was found, or perhaps she thought she had a better chance of vanishing if she traveled alone. In 2003, an American Hauntings blogger talked about Dorothy's case. However, a kind and non-threatening letter was sent to them after they posted their section by a lawyer representing the Feuerstein family, requesting that the post be taken down. These demands reportedly came from other blogs and media sites that had covered the subject at this time. The reason behind the Feuerstein family's reluctance to pursue further investigation into the case remains unclear. While they may have wanted to avoid reopening old wounds, their decision seems unusual. After Dorothy's disappearance, Jules initially offered a $1,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest. However, he later withdrew the reward due to financial constraints. Interestingly, when Jules passed away in 1956, he left his children an inheritance of $4,906, roughly $50,000 in today's currency. In contrast, when Dorothy vanished in 1949, her assets were valued at $9,946, which would be slightly over $125,000 today. The majority of her wealth consisted of securities found in her safety deposit box shortly after she disappeared. Online sleuths have speculated whether Dorothy's disappearance was linked to her assets or if financial struggles played a role in her abduction. A year after Jules' death, Dorothy was officially declared legally dead. The petition that led to the judge's ruling was filed by Myrna, her eldest stepdaughter. Despite this legal closure, the case remains unsolved. Moving on to the next mystery. Brittany Drexel was born on October 7, 1991, in Rochester, New York, to her mother, Dawn Drexel. As a teenager, Brittany had aspirations of pursuing a career in nursing, cosmetology, or modeling. She also struggled with depression. In April 2009, at the age of 17, Brittany asked her mother for permission to travel to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, for spring break with her friends and her boyfriend, John Greco. However, Dawn refused, as no parents would be accompanying the group, and she was unfamiliar with Brittany's friends. She also had a bad feeling about the trip. For several days, Brittany and Dawn argued over the decision. Then, on April 22nd, Brittany asked if she could stay at a friend's house for a few days. This time, Dawn agreed. That day, instead of going to her friend's house as planned, Brittany and her friends secretly headed to Myrtle Beach. Her boyfriend, John, chose not to join them due to work obligations. The group stayed at the Bar Harbor Hotel. 3 days after arriving, Brittany called her mother, Dawn, to let her know she was at the beach. Dawn wasn't alarmed, assuming she meant a local beach rather than Myrtle Beach. On the evening of April 25th, around 8 p.m., Brittany dropped her friends off at the Bar Harbor Hotel beachfront. She then walked about 2 miles south along South Ocean Boulevard to visit a friend, 20-year-old nightclub promoter Peter Brazowitz. The two had first met a few years earlier in Rochester, New York. Peter was vacationing in Myrtle Beach with his friends, staying at the Blue Water Resort. The Blue Water Resort's security cameras capture her entering the structure. She had on a black and white tank top, shorts, flip sandals, and a beige purse. She left at about 8:45 p.m., according to the cameras. Brittany began messaging John via text after she left. They exchanged texts till 9:15 p.m. Then her text abruptly ended. Concerned, John phoned her pals at Myrtle Beach to find out where she was and what had transpired. He chose to phone Dawn after they were unable to assist him. She had never heard before that Brittany had visited Myrtle Beach. After failing to get through to Brittany, she called the Rochester police, asking them to get in touch with the Myrtle Beach police in an attempt to locate Brittany. Police in Myrtle Beach began searching for her the following morning. They watched her movements and looked through the Blue Water Resort security camera footage. Since Brazowitz was the last person to have seen her, They also questioned him. They then looked into Brittany's hotel room. She had packed everything she would need, but neither her purse nor her cell phone was there. The authorities tracked her phone using cell towers and service providers in an area close to the Georgetown-Charleston County boundary, 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. Early on April 26th morning, the phone had unexpectedly ceased pinging. It was the morning following her last sighting. Then, for almost 2 weeks, areas surrounding it and Myrtle Beach that might have been used to dispose of a body were searched. A 2011 search of an apartment in Georgetown County by investigators produced no leads that were of any use. Brittany's case was featured on Dr. Phil, where her mother, Dawn, and Peter Brazowitz had multiple tense exchanges. Brazowitz appeared more concerned about protecting his reputation than about the disappearance of his friend. Determined to stay close to the investigation, Dawn permanently relocated to Myrtle Beach, believing her daughter had been lured there with the promise of an exciting opportunity, possibly a modeling job. She strongly suspected that Brittany had fallen victim to human trafficking. However, Myrtle Beach police dismissed this theory, claiming there was no trafficking activity in the area. This assertion was widely criticized, as Horry County, where Myrtle Beach is located, has the highest number of reported human trafficking cases in South Carolina. Over the years, numerous theories, suspects, and even false confessions have emerged regarding Brittany's disappearance. However, rather than addressing them all, the focus remains on a major breakthrough. In early May 2022, Georgetown County deputies arrested 62-year-old Raymond Moody in connection with Brittany's case. He had been a subject of interest for 10 years, we discovered. Investigators discovered human remains buried in the woods off a gated private drive near Georgetown, 1 week after the suspects were apprehended on May 11, 2022. Using dental records and DNA, Brittany's remains were identified. According to the arrest warrants, Moody is suspected of strangling her on the day she was last seen and burying her the next day. Dawn stated as much during a press conference. "This is a real nightmare for mothers. I have been grieving for my lovely daughter Brittany for the past 13 years. But it's bittersweet now. The resolution and tranquility we have been sorely seeking are now considerably more within our reach. We are starting a new chapter today. The hunt for Brittany has evolved into a quest for Brittany's justice." At the Georgetown County Jail, Moody is being held without being allowed to post bond. We are still learning the details of this case, so we are unable to say how authorities determined that Moody was the person who killed Brittany, nor do we know the motivations behind his actions. At the news conference, Sheriff Carter Weaver stated that while the why may never be known or understood, the task force is now capable of decisively and unhesitatingly responding to the remaining questions, including who is accountable. We pray for you, and we grieve with the Drexel family as you work through the tragedy that occurred 13 years ago. Our thoughts are with you since nobody should have to go through this. Our only wish is that this discovery enables your family to grieve for Brittany in a way that is fitting. It is known that Brittany's body was discovered 2.5 miles from the motel where Moody was staying at the time of her disappearance. It is also known that Moody was incarcerated for 21 years for kidnapping and abusing a 9-year-old girl from California. In several comparable situations, he was thought to be a suspect but was never charged. There was new information that came to light while I was writing the video screenplay. As of right now, Moody has admitted to the crime. Brittany voluntarily got into a car and drove away from the Blue Water Resort, according to the prosecution. After that, she was taken 35 miles south and detained against her will in Georgetown County. After being attacked and strangled at a Santee Riverboat launch, Brittany was buried in the nearby woods. The Georgetown County Sheriff's Office reported that Raymond Moody provided this information but advised taking his statements with caution. However, deputies confirmed that Moody led authorities directly to Brittany's remains, an incriminating detail, as he could not have known her burial site unless he was involved. Police also revealed that Moody had been stopped for speeding in the town of Surfside on April 26, 2009, just 1 day after Brittany was last seen, and the same day he allegedly buried her. Moving on to the next mystery. When Dylan was just 4 years old, his parents, Justin and Candace Round, divorced. As a result, he split his time between Idaho Falls, where his father lived, and Twin Falls, where his mother resided with his younger brother and sister. Despite living in 2 different places, Dylan had a deep connection to the outdoors, an essential part of Idahoan culture. From an early age, he found joy and solace in nature, whether trekking through dense forests, fishing in pristine mountain streams, or exploring rugged terrain. On May 28, 2022, Dylan, known for his adventurous spirit and love of the outdoors, was reported missing. That morning, he called his grandmother to let her know he was moving the grain truck into shelter. After that call, she never heard from him again. Dylan vanished without a trace from his farm in Lewiston, where he had been living in an RV trailer near the Nevada-Utah border. His sudden disappearance triggered a murder investigation that soon revealed a shocking series of events. Disturbing evidence quickly surfaced as authorities delved into the case. A pair of Dylan's boots was found by deputies close to his property during the first search for him. DNA testing identified a bloodstain on one of the boots as belonging to Dylan, and the boots also contained the DNA of a guy named James Brenner. This implied the possibility of manipulation following Dylan's vanishing. Around the time of Dylan's disappearance, Brenner was known to be a squatter living on Dylan's land. Brenner was one of Dylan's last contacts before he vanished, according to his parents. Dylan's phone records were later examined, and they showed that he had been at a secluded Lewiston property on the day before he disappeared. Dylan's phone's last signal was located at the Lewiston Pond. After doing a complete search, Dylan's phone was found. A time-lapse movie that was shot around the time of Dylan's disappearance was discovered through digital forensic examination of his phone. Brenner was seen in the video cleaning a gun, with obvious bloodstains on his shirt and arms. Authorities examined the clothing and determined that Dylan's DNA was present. The evidence was mounting, and it was clear that Brenner was involved in Dylan Round's abduction and likely death. Dylan's family and the community awaited justice as the detectives carried out their job, hoping for answers that would put an end to this awful case. Based on strong evidence acquired throughout the inquiry, Brenner was charged with significant offenses in March 2023, including first-degree felony and abuse or degradation of a human body, which is also a third-degree crime. The time-lapse video, the shirt Brenner wore in the video that showed traces of Dylan's DNA, and the DNA found on Dylan's boots that were found during the initial search efforts were the main pieces of evidence that the prosecution used to build their case. The investigation brought Brenner's worrisome criminal past to light in addition to the evidence findings. His violent past was well documented, and he had already served a prison sentence for felon in possession of a firearm. Dylan's family and the community held out hope for justice and closure in the heartbreaking case as the legal process moved forward. Because of the overwhelming evidence in Brenner's past, a bleak picture was drawn, making both the public and the authorities eager for this tragic saga to come to an end. Authorities continued to aggressively search for Dylan's body as part of the ongoing investigation into his abduction and probable death. Extensive searches have been conducted in the regions where Dylan was last observed, with a particular emphasis on sites connected to the evidence amassed in Brenner's case. Dylan was not found by the detectives, and their search was abandoned. Brenner and the Box Elder County Attorney's Office reached a plea agreement in 2024. He had to reveal Dylan's last resting place in order to have his charges dropped. At last, some 2 years later, on April 9, 2024, Dylan's skeleton remains were found in the isolated Lewiston area of western Box Elder County. He was shot in the head and died as a result. Dylan's family has set up a Facebook page and a special website. The initial goals of these platforms were to disseminate information about the continuing search operations, make updates on the investigation's progress, and give the community a way to offer tips or information that could help in the Dylan search. After he was located, they made use of the platforms to support more national searches for missing persons. The consequences of violence and the community's unwavering quest for the truth are brought home by Dylan's story. More than 24 of Dylan's family members were there for the sentencing on July 1, 2024. Brenner heard Dylan's father say, "This is how you repay Dylan for all the times he helped you. All I can hope is that you consider this for the rest of your life." Brenner was hired by Dylan to labor on his farm, and on occasion, the two of them even shared meals. Brenner has not spoken to the court or provided any more details regarding the events that led him to kill Dylan. He refused to face Dylan's family, as well as the friends and supporters gathered in the courtroom. James Brenner was sentenced to a maximum of 30 years in prison. Due to his lack of remorse, the judge recommended that the parole board keep him incarcerated for as long as possible. The legal process, the uncertainty of waiting, wondering what will happen, when it will happen, and if it ever will, is finally behind us, Dylan's mother said. Another family member added, "While we had hoped for a different outcome, we knew from the start that Dylan was no longer alive." With this latest development, the investigation has come full circle, allowing Dylan to finally be brought home and this chapter to reach its conclusion. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing unsolved mysteries with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Unsolved Mystique for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any mysteries you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video.